I'm doing angle straight lines and chords and so on, and then I'm thinking, my God, but I'm stuck. Where am I going to go from there? And, it's my nature. I'm never satisfied. I want to go beyond. So one day I'm thinking, look, when you have done a straight line, when you have done a broken line or a curve, what else can you do? In geometry, you cannot do anything else. And I'm thinking that I have to stay in this mathematical thing because it's my context. I cannot go away from it. Until the day that I said, well, why can't I go away? Why do I have to stay in geometry? So I'm thinking the only variation which is possible now is a line which goes like crazy, a free line, not determined mathematically like the others. So I do what I call the indeterminate line. And the first time I made one, I showed it to my dealer in France, and I said, look what I could do. And he comes and he said, Bernard, forget about it, destroy it. Because if people see that you are going into some crazy things like this, they're not going to believe in you anymore, and nobody is going to be interested. So I made one, and I made two, and I made three, And then I got convinced that it was a possibility, and why not? And after all, I prefer to make a mistake for a year or two, but one day, eventually, something is going to come out, or then I will go back to something, because I went in the wrong way. So I do that, and one day, since I want to go beyond, now I start to make the line that goes on top of itself, you see? And I do that like a spiral kind of shape. And this is the last one I made before I started to do, the real indeterminate line as you know it in sculpture. But just before, I go into sculptures by making, again, the arcs like this, leaning against the wall, the angles. You see, these are arcs again. And I make a few variations. And one day I'm thinking, okay, look, why not, since I was starting to get out of the wall with those reliefs, I could make a sculpture that really gets out of the wall. And these are the very first indeterminate line in steel that I made. But I didn't know how to, it was so difficult to control the making of those pieces that I could not even make them stand in the middle of the room because you don't do what you want. The technique that we used was never explored before. And I was just happy to do something that I could put against the wall. You see, this is my first exhibition. None of the line was able to stand by itself, so I put them against the wall and I exhibited them like this. Well, they are wall reliefs after all, But very quickly, I found solution. I just understood that if you make an oval, the piece is going to hold like this, you see. But if you make an oval and you want it to stand up like this, it's going to fall, of course. So, the brain has to adapt sometimes. I'm a little slow. And then I made some monumental pieces like this one in Paris at La Défense. These are typical of the indeterminate lines. There is one in Singapore, actually, you know them. This is one in Taiwan. But anyway, these are variations that was exhibited at Versailles last year. Okay, that's it. So we become more and more complex now. You see, at the beginning, I'm happy to bend a piece of steel and to present it like this. But now that I master very well that technique, I can do pretty much what I want. And when it's very complex like this, in order for the lines to go into each other, I make maquettes and then I try to make them big. I never succeed in making exactly the same thing because it's, making those things, you have no idea, it's in steel. 11 centimeters by 11 centimeters, so a piece like this weighs about 15 tons, and when you are trying to bend this thing, it's extremely dangerous, first of all, and you don't heat it. You bend the steel cold like that. So it's a real fight that you have with the steel, and you try to do something, and the steel does something else. So when you adapt, you say, ha, 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 and I'm going to get you here. And then you just fight constantly until you get something that looks like something, convenable, as we say in French. Okay, and now I'm developing the arcs. After making too many of the indeterminate line, not too many, but after making many, there is a funny story. One day I was in a bar with the artist Dennis Oppenheim. We're having a beer, the two of us, and we are at the bar like this, and there is a window just like that, and there is the street, And suddenly I see a guy passing by, Balteshuva, that's his name. He wrote a book on Andy Warhol. He's passing by, and I see him, and he sees me. So I said, hey, hi, Of course, he cannot hear me, and I cannot hear him. He's outside in the street. It goes like this. But he's with someone, and he says to this someone, this is Bernar Venet. Of course, I cannot hear it, but I see that he shows me like this. And the guy goes, Bernar Venet, and he says, and I see my friend doing that, and the guy goes, oh, of course, you know. So I said, you know, I have so much to develop, so much to do that I'm going to develop other possibilities in sculptures. And so I went back. I mean, I developed a lot the arcs. These they were simple. Now, this is arcs in disorder that was exhibited in Versailles. Another one, now I'm doing leaning arcs, you see, they go into each other like this, just different kind of composition. These are variations on the leaning arcs. Okay, that's inside my studio in the south of France, where I have a huge factory in which I can make big installations like that. And it's very important to, it's not like an exhibition space, it's just that when you're a painter, you can make a painting, you sit in front of it, you look at it for a while, and you analyze, you try to improve it. Here, those big things, you have to live with them for a while, turn around, think about it, and change the composition, or you know, in order to find the ideal solution. So I have to live with them. These are what I call the effondrement. I was talking about it this morning. You know, it's the contrary of constructivism. An artist who is doing constructivism in a way, is going to put like this, then he's going to stick that on it, then like round stuff, is going to make a construction, okay? Here it's totally the opposite. This, originally, you have some arcs which are very well put together, you know, in a nice, clean arrangement, and suddenly, bang, you know, like you come with a forklift, or there is an earthquake or whatever, and everything collapses, you know? And this is what I'm showing, the destruction of what was previously on a stable state, let's say.